Hello, all. This is Ankita, and today we are going to talk about the Lost Generation. The Lost Generation refers to a group of American writers who came of age during or after World War One. And these writers fell disillusioned by war's brutality and moral emptiness of the post war society. The term Lost Generation was popularized by Gertrude Stein, who reportedly told Ernest Hemingway, "You are all a lost generation." After World War I, Europe was devastated. Traditional values like religion, patriotism, morality seemed hollow. Many young Americans moved to Paris, which was the literary capital of the time. These people experienced disillusionment, alienation, moral confusion, and sense of rootlessness. मतलब लॉस्ट जनरेशन वो जनरेशन ऑफ अमेरिकन राइटर्स है जो वॉर के दौरान या वर्ल्ड वॉर वन के बाद आई. इन लोगों ने बिकॉज वॉर में बहुत ज़्यादा ब्रूटैलिटी देख ली थी, तो दे फेल्ट डिसइल्यूशन्ड एंड everything, whether it was society, it was moral values, it was feelings, all of these things had no value for them any longer. So this was a generation जिन्होंने hollowness, rootlessness face किया. This period also overlaps with Roaring Twenties, the rise of materialism and modernity. Major writers of the Lost Generation were Ernest Hemingway, Fitzgerald, T.S. Eliot, Ezra Pound, and Gertrude Stein. The theme around which they wrote were disillusionment, after war, loss of faith in traditional values, moral emptiness, alienation and isolation, expatriate life, search of meaning, and collapse of the American dream. So you can see that sense of hopelessness which was lurking in the Lost Generation just because they had some ambitions before war, and those ambitions now no longer had meaning. The reality, what their dream was and what the reality they faced was completely different, and hence they felt that sense of emptiness, isolation, and alienation in the society. Now, why do we call this generation as lost? We call this generation as lost because they lost faith in society. Yeah, they felt spiritually empty. They rejected old traditional values and had not found any new values. They wandered physically and emotionally. There was no stable place for them. Now let me give you an example of a lost generation. Okay, imagine a group of young soldiers who were going to war believing in heroism, in patriotism, but after seeing death, destruction, they returned home. But nothing, now once they return home, they feel that whatever they believed in, nothing was real anymore. Parties feel fake, money felt empty, love felt temporary. So they traveled to Paris, they drank, write on love, fight. But deep inside, they still were hollow, they still were directionless. And that generation was termed as lost generation. For example, Ernest Hemingway, who wrote The Sun Also Rises or A Farewell to Arms, he presented his characters who drank excessively, travel aimlessly, struggle with love, and feel emotionally numb. In his writing, you will see minimal description. He normally follows the iceberg theory, which means meaning is always beneath the surface. Now, the second one is F. Scott Fitzgerald. He wrote The Great Gatsby. He critiques materialism, illusion of wealth, moral corruption. He shows failure of the American dream. Again, a sense of lost. A sense of being lost, a sense of aimlessness also lurks as a theme in his works. Now, another important writer of the Lost Generation is T.S. Eliot, who has written his famous work, The Wasteland. The poem reflects spiritual barrenness, cultural decay, and fragmentation. This is a perfect poetic expression of the Lost Generation crisis. And then we have Ezra Pound, who promoted the concept of imagism. Now, moving further, the major themes which were a part of their writing was disillusionment, which means war destroyed their faith of heroism, and hence what they could see now was nothingness. It was the entire thing was disillusioned for them. Alienation, characters feel disconnected from society. Moral emptiness, pleasure replaced purpose. Why? Because they felt even with purpose, the ending was nothing. So it's better live life with pleasure. Then was expatriate identity, living in Europe but emotionally rootless. Collapse of the American dream. Wealth does not guarantees happiness. They were very clear with the idea that money does not give you happiness. Now there were various literary techniques which they used. The Lost Generation writers adopted modernist techniques like fragmentation, symbolism, minimalistic prose, irony, stream of consciousness, and various others. Their writing style reflected the broken world they lived in. Yesterday we talked about the Lost Generation, and today about the Beat Generation, and today about the Lost Generation. Now let's differentiate between the two. The Lost Generation emerged during World War I, whereas the Beat Generation emerged during after the World War II, right? So the Lost Generation, World War I, around 1920s, they were deeply affected by the war trauma. There was a moral collapse. Whereas if we talk about the Beat Generation, it emerged after World War II, somewhere in 1950s, and you see a reaction against the post-war American materialism and conformity. The Lost Generation is lost spiritually. They are disillusioned. They felt betrayed by war and the modern civilization. Whereas the Beat Generation is exhausted, is beaten down. They sought transcendence through experience. Now the Lost Generation is somewhere skeptical about the idea of the American dream, but the Beat Generation somewhere reject the idea of American dream completely. There is spiritual emptiness in the Lost Generation, whereas the Beat Generation now begin to move towards Eastern religions like Buddhism, like mysticism, and various others. The Lost Generation was at that point of time suffering inwardly. There was hollowness, there was emptiness inside them. Whereas the Beat Generation was protesting loudly. They were using the underlined themes of jazz music while they were protesting. Now the mood of the Lost Generation was melancholic, right? They were always sad, they were always hollow, whereas the Beat Generation is energetic. It uses jazz music. You will see existential despair in the Lost Generation, whereas the Beat Generation, you will see cultural rebellion. They are rebellious people. They want to bring about certain change in the society. The Lost Generation, the important geographical area where these people play in is Europe, especially Paris. Whereas when we talk about the Beat Generation, it is America, New York, San Francisco, and that area. Lost Generation reflects trauma and suffering silently in that broken world, whereas the Beat Generation reflect protest loudly. So we can clearly see the difference कि जो Lost Generation के लोग हैं वो अभी वॉर से आए हैं, उन लोगों ने कुछ सोचा था, पर जो आइडियाज, जो आइडियोलॉजीज उन्होंने सोची थी, वो रियलिटी जब फेस हुई, they found that wasn't true. And hence now they feel empty, they feel disillusioned, they feel melancholic, they face that existential despair, they are suffering inwardly. They feel that it is better to enjoy life, to indulge in all the drinking and all of those things, but still they do not find any direction. Whereas when we talk about the Beat Generation, is a post-World War II generation where when they fight, they do not suffer internally. In fact, they speak that thing out rightly loud. They are very energetic, they are very rebellious, they want to bring about certain change, and they have completely rejected the idea of the American dream. They are not in that stage of dilemma. So this is the major difference when we talk about the Beat Generation and the Lost Generation. I hope this idea is clear to you. Thank you.